Hi, AJ Dasani from Ace Accountants and Merkler Sharp Accountants, your happy, smiley accountants with a slightly longer budget video. Today's the 7th of March, and yesterday the Chancellor, Jeremy Hunt, delivered his, what looks like, final budget. So this one will be slightly longer than usual because there's quite a few changes, so please do bear with me. It's worth a watch. If not, there are a set of notes that accompany it as well. So, as usual, I start with just the kind of brief bits on the economy. We'll then move on to the major changes, and then there'll be a few smaller ones that are discussed towards the end as well. So, to get started, growth looks slightly better than forecasted. It's expected to be 0.8% this year and about 1.9% next year. So that's a positive. And the one that obviously we've all been feeling the pinch of is obviously the inflation, and that's predicted to go down to under 2% in, as he said, a matter of months, down from a peak of, 11% in October 2022. So that's a huge positive from an economy perspective. Moving on to the major changes, the biggest one that obviously wasn't much of a secret was the cut in national insurance. A lot of you may remember that now, obviously, there was a 2% reduction in the autumn statement last year. So now, with the additional 2% reduction, employee national insurance is now down to 8% from 10%, and the self-employed national insurance rate is down to 6% from 8%. So that's a fairly significant change, and that impacts a lot of small businesses from the perspective that the traditional small salary and larger dividend way of taking your money out will probably now not be beneficial. And it will now probably be a case of taking a higher salary as the most tax efficient approach. Problem with that is if a Labour government comes in at the election and then they reverse this time next year in the next budget, then that might just be a change for a year. So as you'll see in my notes, I feel like there's two ways of attacking this. It might be worth waiting for a year if you want to look more long term, but if you want to take advantage of the saving now for a year and then reassess next year, then obviously we can do that as well. Get in touch if you want to discuss that. Second, a very long required change was the increase in the VAT registration threshold. That's been 85k for years now, and now immediately from April 24, that's going up to £90,000 before you need to register for VAT. Really, really good welcome change, especially with inflation. Number three, that the top rate of CGT on property transfers, on property transactions, was 28%. That's gone down to, it's been cut now to 24%. If you're a higher rate taxpayer, you sell an additional property, you'll pay 24% as opposed to 28%. The biggest political hot potato situation was obviously this non-dom tax regime, which has been abolished. That is fairly complex because there are a set of transition scenarios there. So I'm not going to go through this in too much detail. Suffice to say, we do have a few clients that are non-dom, so discuss those with us directly when you get a moment so we can plan accordingly. And the final change, the final significant change, is that the furnished holiday lettings scheme or system that existed, where there were really two major differences if you had short lets, was that capital allowances were dealt with more favourably and you could claim the whole amount of your mortgage interest as compared to if you were on a long let. So that kind of favoured the Airbnb short stay model. That has now been entirely abolished. So those are the major changes. There are some smaller changes that I feel affect our clients, so I will just update you on those as well. So the most significant of those for me is that child benefit. As you may be aware, that right now if you earn over £50,000, it starts to be tapered off what you receive, and at 60k you in effect have to pay the whole amount of child benefit back. Those two numbers are now going up to 60 and 80k. So you keep the whole amount of child benefit up to 60k. It gets tapered off from 60 to 80k, and at 80k you'll now lose all of it. Second, tax relief, stamp duty relief on multi-dwellings is being abolished as well. There will be a new UK shares ISA of £5,000 in addition to your regular £20,000 ISA allowance. There will be a new vaping duty from October 2026. And the one that I like, if it works, is the NHS productivity plan using AI, making it paperless. I mean, it's been mooted for years. We know it's been tricky, especially from a funding perspective, perspective. So it appears that there's more funding for that as well. So that's a bit of good news. And yeah, look, 5 minutes to cover all of that. That's not that bad. But again, just to summarize, for me, the kind of really major planning points are that from a national insurance perspective, it's worth looking. If you have a small business, you're taking salary and dividend, it might just be worth, if you already run payroll, to increase your salary from April onwards, to take advantage of this at least for what looks like the next tax year, and cut down on drawing dividends as well. But feel free to discuss that with me and one of the team if you like. So that's AJ Dasani from Ace Accountants and Merkle Sharp Accountants, your happy, smiley accountants. Thank you for listening. Have a lovely day.